Welcome to Starbound. My name's Chikondi, and I'll be your narrator today. Nearly 500 supporters get early access to our stories, including brand new episodes of Sunspire Academy and Farron and Rimiki. If you'd like to unlock early access and support new episodes and future series, tap Join below to become a Starbound member. Now let's get into today's story. The Galactic Deathworld Summit wasn't just any competition. It was the Olympics of survival, the ultimate test of evolutionary superiority. Every century, invitations went out to the most fearsome species that had clawed, bitten, and murdered their way to the top of their respective food chains. Species that had evolved on planets where the rain dissolved bones, where the air itself was toxic, where gravity crushed lesser beings into paste. The competition was brutal, unforgiving, and absolutely mandatory viewing across all galactic arms. So, when Commander Thulos of the Invitation Committee received the automated alert that a species called humans had been added to this century's roster, he assumed it was a practical joke.
"Computer, display classification for humans,"
Thulos commanded. The holographic display flickered to life. Species, human, Homo sapiens. Classification, Tier 2 endurance species. Homeworld, Earth. Sol 3. Gravity rating, 1.0, standard. Atmospheric toxicity, negligible. Apex predator status, no. Notable achievements, primitive spaceflight, reality television, Facebook. The display glitched and revised its last sentence. Notable achievements, primitive spaceflight, reality television, TikTok. Thulos's primary mouth split into what his species considered laughter, a sound like rocks being fed into a wood chipper.
"They're barely a Tier 2,
he howled to his assistant.
"Their planet isn't even a proper death world. The gravity is weak, the oxygen is abundant. Their apex predators are furry and have names like Steve and Mittens. Don't get me started on the archaic forms of entertainment they rot their minds with."
His assistant, a gelatinous cube named Blurp, bubbled in agreement.
"Shall I rescind the invitation, Commander?"
Thulos paused, his secondary brain lobe lighting up with malice.
No. Let's see if they actually show up. It'll be the most entertaining 5 minutes of slaughter in Summit history.
The invitation went out, traveling across 17 relay stations before reaching Earth's primitive communication grid. The humans, surprisingly, responded immediately. From Earth Expedition Committee to Galactic Deathworlder Summit organizers. We accept. Our team is as follows. Kestrel Reeves, ex-Marine, team leader. Dr. Nyota Wright, xenobiologist. Ravi Kapoor, engineer. Malachi Goldstein, wildcard. P.S. We're taking bets on our survival odds. Current spread is 10,000 to 1 against. Care to put some credits down? When the message was translated and displayed to the Galactic High Council, the resulting laughter caused 3 minor diplomatic incidents and 1 declaration of war. The Krazik ambassador laughed so hard he molted prematurely.
"Humans!"
wheezed Ambassador Drath of the Trogathian Empire, a 9-foot-tall reptilian creature whose scales could deflect missile fire.
"I once used a human skull as a drinking cup. It hardly held a mouthful. Their brains aren't developed enough to stand a chance in this competition."
"The Zirak broodmind will consume their genetic material for breakfast,"
chirped the Zirak representative, a drone of the multi-bodied hive consciousness.
"Their DNA is hardly worth archiving."
"The Athul Rageborn will paint the competition grounds with their entrails,"
growled the Athul delegate, a hulking figure restrained by 3 separate shock collars that pulsed with suppressed violence. The bets against human survival reached astronomical figures. 1 galactic standard credit on human victory would pay out enough to purchase a small moon. Exactly 14 days later, the human team arrived at the summit's orbital station. Kestrel Reeves, retired Marine, stepped off the shuttle with a duffel bag over his shoulder and a steaming cup in his hand. He was a compact man with the relaxed posture of someone who knew exactly how many ways he could kill you with his thumb. The handle of what appeared to be a primitive, chain-driven cutting device protruded from his bag. "Nice place," he remarked, sipping his coffee. "Bit drafty." Dr. Nyota Wright followed, already scribbling notes on a tablet. Her eyes darted everywhere, cataloging species with the focus of someone who had dissected things 10 times her size for fun.
The biodiversity is remarkable. Is that a biped arachnid consuming its mate? Fascinating reproductive strategy, similar to insects and arachnids on Earth.
Ravi Kapoor emerged, carrying at least 3 times his body weight in equipment. Components, tools, and what looked suspiciously like improvised weapons clinked in his backpack. "I thought this was more of a reality show situation," he explained to no one in particular. "But this works too. Great lighting in here. Very evil space station chic." Finally, Malachi Goldstein sauntered out, wearing sunglasses and a Hawaiian shirt. He carried nothing but a small pack and wore a perpetual grin. "Dudes! This is way better than Vegas! Hey, which one of you guys is taking bets? I've got some cash burning a hole in my pocket!" The alien delegates stared in stunned silence. The humans hadn't just shown up. They were acting like they were at a company retreat. An 8-limbed official approached them cautiously.
"Humans, there appears to be a misunderstanding. This is the Deathworld Summit. You will be dropped onto Vortha 6, the single most lethal planet in the known universe. No human has ever set foot there and survived."
Kestrel took another sip of his coffee. "First time for everything." Dr. Wright looked up from her tablet.
Does Vorta 6 have those delightful acid lakes I've read about? The ones with the flesh-dissolving microbes?
The official blinked all 17 of his eyes in confusion.
"Yes, but—"
Excellent, she beamed. I've brought sample containers.
Ravi was already sketching something on a digital pad. "Question. What's the atmospheric composition? Just need to calibrate some things." The official stammered.
"Nitrogen chloride base with trace methane and—"
Cool, Ravi nodded, not looking up. "And gravity?"
2.3 standard.
Perfect. Malachi had wandered off and was now chatting with a Trogathian warrior 3 times his size, somehow convincing the battle-scarred reptile to arm-wrestle him for drinks. "Double or nothing, lizard bro! Come on, I've got soft human arms! Easy money!" As the competition's start time approached, the audience gathered in the massive viewing arena. Billions more watched via Neuralcast across the galaxy. The announcer began.
"Welcome to the Centennial Deathworld Summit. Today, the galaxy's most fearsome evolved killers will face the ultimate test of survival on Vortha 6.
The crowd roared.
"Introducing our competitors. From the Trogathian Empire, Warlord Kraxval, survivor of 1,000 battles, drinker of enemy blood, destroyer of moons."
A massive reptilian figure stomped onto the stage, armor gleaming, rows of teeth glinting under the lights. He flexed his big muscles while the crowd shrieked its approval.
"From the collective consciousness of the Zirak Horde, Overmind Viznik, consumer of civilizations, assimilator of knowledge, the many who are one!"
A swarm of insectoid creatures moved as one onto the stage, forming patterns that hurt the eye to follow.
"Representing the Athel Dominion, War Chief Gorthak, the living weapon, terror of the void, forbidden by treaty from approaching 17 inhabited worlds."
A hulking creature with too many limbs and far too many weapons stalked forward, shock collar pulsing as it barely contained the rage within.
"And, from Earth, some humans, I guess."
The crowd went almost completely silent. A few awkward claps echoed throughout the arena. Kestrel, Nyota, Ravi, and Malachi walked onto the stage with casual smiles. Kestrel waved while sipping his coffee. Malachi took selfies with the flabbergasted crowd. The announcer seemed confused by their lack of grandeur, but continued.
In 24 hours, all competitors will be dropped onto Vortha 6. Only the strongest will survive to claim the ultimate prize. One wish granted by the Galactic High Council itself!
As the competitors were led away to their preparation chambers, Ambassador Drath of the Trogathian Empire approached the humans with a predatory smile.
I've placed my entire family fortune on your deaths occurring within the first 5 minutes,
he hissed pleasantly.
Any last words before tomorrow?
Kestrel looked up from his coffee. Yeah, we'll take that bet. The drop pods screamed through Vortha 6's atmosphere like meteors, each one containing a competitor or team. Red-hot from entry, they slammed onto the planet's surface across a 500-square-kilometer landing zone. The human pod's door hissed open, deploying an emergency ramp. Kestrel stepped out first, tactical sunglasses already on, scanning the horizon. Weather report, acid hurricane to the north, fire tornado to the east, and what appears to be raining carnivorous eels to the south. Dr. Wright emerged next, her eyes wide with delight rather than terror.
Incredible! The entire ecosystem is weaponized. Look at those plants. They're actually circling each other for dominance.
She pointed to what looked like ferns engaged in a slow-motion knife bite. Ravi stepped out carrying 3 bags of equipment. Temperature's about 43 Celsius. Atmospheric toxicity at 62%. Radiation levels are spicy. Not great, not terrible. He dropped his bags and immediately began unpacking what looked like a portable laboratory. It shouldn't cause any irreparable damage as long as we don't spend weeks here. Malachi exited lost, stretching casually as if he'd just gotten off a long flight. So, this is hell, huh? Kinda expected more brimstone, less whatever that is. He pointed at a pulsating purple mass on a nearby rock. Hey, Nyoda, is that thing supposed to be breathing?
No idea,
she said cheerfully, already approaching it with a sample container.
But I'm going to find out.
Kestrel grabbed her shoulder. Later, Doc. First priority, secure perimeter, establish base camp, ensure survival necessities.
Boring but correct,
she admitted. A distant scream cut through the air, distinctly alien, distinctly agonized. That would be our competition starting to thin out, Kestrel noted dryly. Across the landing zone, Warlord Valex of the Trogathian Empire had confidently marched to a shimmering pool of liquid. After 14 consecutive victories in ritual combat arenas, he considered himself practically immortal. Thirsty from the drop, he bent down to drink. The liquid surged upward, formed a mouth, and in one swift motion dissolved the mighty warrior from the inside out. His legendary armor clattered to the ground, now occupied only by rapidly liquefying organs. Elsewhere, the Zurak Overmind had identified a massive tree-like structure as an ideal hive location. As the first drones began to burrow into its bark, the tree shuddered. Its branches whipped downward, impaling dozens of drones simultaneously. The remaining Zirak attempted to retreat, but the ground beneath them erupted as the tree's root system revealed itself to be hundreds of tentacular mouths. The Athel war chief, Gorthak, enraged by a growling sound from above, had immediately declared war on the sky itself. This proved to be a tactical error when the clouds, composed of semi-sentient electrical organisms, took personal offense. A bolt of lightning, seemingly guided by malicious intelligence, struck the war chief with such precision that his 17-layer battle armor acted as a perfect conductor. What remained was a smoking crater and a lingering smell of overcooked protein. Meanwhile, the humans had spent the first 10 minutes doing something none of the other competitors had considered, assessing their surroundings methodically rather than relying on brute force to guide them. Water sources all suspect, Kestrel reported, returning from a quick reconnaissance. Vegetation is either carnivorous, toxic, or both. Wildlife is enthusiastically hostile. Ravi had already assembled a portable shelter using lightweight components from his pack. I've got basic atmospheric filtration running. Should keep the worst of the airborne toxins out. Working on water purification next. Nyota was cataloging nearby flora with focused joy.
The evolutionary adaptations here are extraordinary. This plant has developed microscopic projectile barbs filled with neurotoxin.
She held up a leaf that was trying its best to stab her through her protective gloves. Malachi had wandered a short distance away and was now returning with 6 creatures following him. They resembled wolves, if wolves had 6 legs, armored exoskeletons, and an acid-dripping maxillae instead of jaws. "Guys, meet the gang!" Malachi announced proudly. "This is Ross, Rachel, Chandler, Monica, Phoebe, and Joey." Kestrel stared. "You named the Death Wolves after Friends characters? Isn't that show kind of old?" "Sheesh, who shit in your coffee? Besides, they're friendly once you show them who's boss," Malachi shrugged. "And they're pack animals, needed names." "How did you—" Ravi began. "Jerky, dominance, and positive reinforcement," Malachi explained, pulling a package from his pocket. "There's little that meat and good vibes can't solve." Kestrel shook his head in resignation. "Fine, they might be useful for perimeter security. Just keep Chandler away from my coffee supply." As night fell on Vortha 6, a process that involved the sky turning a disconcerting shade of green and emitting a low humming sound, the humans had accomplished something remarkable. Whether other competitors were hiding in crevices or constantly running from threats, the humans had established a functional base camp. Ravi had constructed a surprisingly sturdy fortress, using a combination of their pod's material, native stone, and the remarkably durable bones of local fauna that had made the mistake of attacking during construction. The gang of insectoid wolves proved useful in their perimeter defense, with Rachel and Chandler being the most vicious and protective. Malachi was sure to reward them with the bones and flesh of enemy corpses. "The outer wall should resist most physical attacks," Ravi explained, tightening a final joint. "The roof is designed to channel the acid away from our living space, and I've rigged up a basic alarm system using those resonating crystal formations I found, though those hellhounds maladopted should be alarm enough." "What about weapons?" Kestrel asked, inspecting the perimeter. Ravi grinned and held up what looked like a modified pressure vessel attached to a nozzle. "Remember those super flammable sap pods we found? Combined with this ignition system..." He pointed the device at a nearby rock and pressed a trigger. A stream of blue flame shot out, briefly turning the rock molten. "Holy shit!" Malachi whistled, impressed. Inside the fortress, Nyota had set up a laboratory space and was examining samples. "I've identified 3 compounds with medicinal properties," she announced. "This fungus contains a powerful antivenom effective against most of the toxins I've tested. This root has incredible coagulant properties, stops bleeding instantly. And this weird pulsating thing? Well, I'm not entirely sure what it does, but it makes a lovely blue glow when agitated." Kestrel had established a defensive perimeter and was now working on what appeared to be... "Is that a bar?" Nyota asked incredulously. "Morale is essential to survival," Kestrel replied without looking up from his work. "Coffee for mornings, something stronger for evenings. We'll need both to stay sharp." Malachi had somehow trained his pack of death wolves to patrol in shifts. "Joey and Chandler take first watch," he explained, scratching behind what might charitably be called an ear on the largest creature. "They're eager to please. Monica's a little high-strung, but has the best nose for danger. Ross whines a lot, but is surprisingly good in a fight. Rachel's a little psychotic, though, I won't lie." By the time the planet's 3 moons rose, one red, one pulsating, and one that appeared to be watching them, the humans had not only survived, but established dominance over their immediate territory. Meanwhile, in viewing chambers across the galaxy, audiences watched in stunned disbelief.
"They're building things?"
whispered an Arcturian diplomat.
"The small one has tamed Vortha hellbeasts,"
muttered a Proxima general, spilling his drink.
"We've tried for centuries to domesticate those for war use, We lost 3 battalions in the attempt.
The female is collecting poison samples,
hissed a Beetlejuicean scientist.
for fun.
The betting odds, once 10,000 to 1 against human survival, had shortened dramatically to 50 to 1. The wealthiest gambling syndicates across 17 systems were beginning to sweat. As dawn broke on Vortha 6, a process that involved the horizon bleeding literally, not figuratively, the humans gathered to plan their day.
All right, team,
Kestrel said, distributing cups of freshly filtered coffee.
Day 1 was about establishing base and securing necessities. Day 2 was about reconnaissance and resource gathering.
I need more biological samples,
Nyota said immediately.
particularly from the region we've designated as Nope Valley.
I spotted what might be workable metal deposits about 2 clicks south, Ravi added. With the right tools, I could improve our defenses considerably. Friends need more territory to hunt, Malachi said, scratching Phoebe behind her armored mandible. They're getting restless.
Kestrel nodded. We'll split into teams of 2. Ravi and I will check out the metal deposits. Nyota and Malachi, you take biological sampling, but stay within emergency retreat distance. Keep comms open at all.
A deafening roar cut him off. The ground trembled beneath their feet. From beyond the ridge to the west emerged a creature that defied description. Part insect, part reptile, all nightmare. It stood taller than their fortress, with limbs that ended in scything blades and a maw that could swallow a shuttlecraft whole. The humans froze. Then Kestrel calmly sipped his coffee.
Slight change of plans, he said. Looks like breakfast found us.
Good morning, galactic citizens! This is Lictor, bringing you Day 2 of the Deathworld Summit, and against all odds and expectations, the humans remain not only alive, but thriving! This is unprecedented in Summit history!
The broadcast host, a shimmering being whose form kept shifting between shapes, was practically vibrating with excitement. His co-host, a multi-eyed slug creature named Blurg, looked considerably less enthused.
Surely it's only a matter of time before reality catches up with these primitive mammals,
Blurg gurgled pessimistically.
No species with such flimsy exoskeletons could possibly... Wait, what are they doing now?
The camera drones zoomed in on the human encampment, where an enormous apex predator, classified in xenobiology texts as a Vortha behemoth, was currently charging the small fortress.
It appears the humans have encountered a Class 5 extinction event,
Zictor announced gleefully.
For context, viewers, a single Vortha behemoth once eliminated an entire draconian battle legion in under 4 minutes. This should bring the human story to its inevitable tragic conclusion.
On screen, Kestrel Reeves stepped forward calmly, moving toward the charging behemoth.
Is he sacrificing himself to save the others?
Blurg wondered.
He appears to be taunting it?
Zlictor said uncertainly. Indeed, Kestrel was standing directly in the behemoth's path, waving his arms and shouting. At the last possible moment, he dove aside with practiced precision. The behemoth, unable to change direction at its speed, charged straight into an area of seemingly solid ground, which immediately collapsed under its weight. The camera pulled back to reveal that the monster had fallen into a massive pit trap, its walls lined with sharpened stakes fashioned from the bones of smaller predators.
They dug a trap!
Zlictor shrieked.
A primitive physical trap!
When did they even have time to dig that?
Blurg whispered, genuinely disturbed. The behemoth thrashed in the pit, impaled in multiple places, but still very much alive and increasingly angry. The humans gathered at the edge, looking down at it critically. That's not going to hold it for long, Ravi noted, already working on something involving sap-filled pods and what appeared to be a timer.
It's beautiful,
Nyota breathed, taking readings on her device.
Triple-layered exoskeleton armor, serrated mandibles capable of shearing through titanium. Its digestive system must be fascinating.
Think we can still eat it? Malachi asked. Kestrel shook his head.
First, we need to neutralize the threat.
Ravi held up his completed device. Fire in the hole. He tossed the contraption into the pit. There was a brief pause, then a blinding explosion followed by a sound like 1,000 knives being sharpened at once. When the smoke cleared, the behemoth lay motionless. "Is it dead?" Malachi asked, peering down.
Stunned,
Nyota corrected, checking her readings.
its nervous system is temporarily overloaded. We may have 20 minutes before it regenerates.
"Perfect," Kestrel said. "Ravi, get the winch system ready. Nyota, prep your sampling kit. Malachi, time to see if your new friends are good for more than just patrols." What followed was a master class in efficiency. Within 15 minutes, the humans had hoisted the multi-ton behemoth out of the pit using a makeshift pulley system, collected blood tissue and venom samples for Nyota's research, harvested specific organs and glands that Nyota identified as useful, begun butchering the edible portions.
The chitin plates will make excellent reinforcement for our walls,
Ravi noted, already measuring them.
The venom glands contain compounds I can use for both medicine and, if necessary, weapons,
Nyota added, carefully extracting a sack the size of a basketball. "And the rest," Malachi grinned, setting up what looked like a barbecue pit, "is dinner." Across the galaxy, viewers watched in stunned silence. In the luxury boxes of the observation station, the wealthy elites who had bet against human survival were beginning to panic. The draconian emperor, who had wagered the mineral rights to 3 moons on the humans' quick demise, was quietly ordering his financial advisors to prepare for significant portfolio adjustments.
"They're not just surviving,"
whispered a Centaurian baron, watching Malachi expertly season behemoth steaks with spices he had somehow smuggled from Earth.
"They're thriving."
Meanwhile, in other parts of Vortha 6, the remaining alien competitors weren't faring nearly as well. A swarm of flesh-eating insects descended on the remaining Zirak drones. Rather than flee or fight strategically, the broodmind attempted to assimilate the insects into its consciousness, a tactic that had worked on thousands of less lethal worlds. The insects, however, seemed fundamentally uninterested in joining a collective, and more focused on the buffet of alien protein suddenly available to them. Elsewhere, one of the surviving Athol warriors encountered what appeared to be a beautiful oasis. Desperate for water, he charged in without testing it first. The water turned out to be a colonial organism that mimicked liquid until touched, at which point it transformed into trillions of microscopic mouths. The Athol's signature battle cry quickly turned into something much less intimidating and more chilling. Back at the human camp, evening was approaching, and the smell of roasting behemoth filled the air. "I call it Behemoth a la Malachi," Malachi announced proudly, serving up steaks the size of car doors to his companions. The death wolves waited patiently for their portions, which Malachi served with a flourish and a little spin.
The protein content is off the charts,
Nyota noted, taking a bite,
and surprisingly palatable once you get past the slight ammonia aftertaste.
"I've reinforced our perimeter with the chitin plates," Ravi reported between bites. "Also, I've been working on something new." He held up what looked like a crossbow, but with multiple firing mechanisms and a power cell. "Launches projectiles coated in the neurotoxin Nyota extracted. Should take down anything short of a behemoth with one hit." Kestrel nodded approvingly, then raised his cup, containing a liquid that definitely wasn't coffee anymore. "Today, too, we're not just surviving. We're making this hellhole our bitch." The others raised their cups in agreement.
"I've been thinking,"
Nyota said, looking thoughtful.
"The biological samples I've collected contain compounds that could revolutionize medicine back home. Tissue regeneration, neural pathway stimulation, targeted toxins that could replace traditional chemotherapy."
"The engineering applications are just as significant," Ravi added. "The molecular structure of these materials could inspire whole new classes of technology." Malachi chewed thoughtfully. "Plus, this would make one hell of a theme park." The others looked at him. "Think about it," he continued, warming to his idea. "Extremely wealthy thrill-seekers would pay fortunes for a controlled, dangerous experience. Survive Vortha 6, if you dare. We could build safety outposts, emergency extraction protocols, guided tours of the most dangerous zones." Kestrel raised an eyebrow. You want to turn a Deathworld into a tourist attraction?
The most exclusive, expensive tourist attraction in the galaxy, Malachi corrected. Rich people love dangerous stuff when they think they're safe.
Before the conversation could continue, one of the perimeter crystal alarms sounded, a high-pitched chime. Movement to the north, Kestrel said, immediately on alert. Multiple signatures, approaching slowly. They readied their weapons, but instead of another predator, they were surprised to see a battered alien figure emerge from the darkness. It was a Krell, a species known for their crystalline exoskeletons and telepathic abilities, though this particular specimen looked decidedly worse for wear. "Please," the Krell transmitted telepathically, its crystalline form cracked in multiple places. "I seek sanctuary. I am Sir Tal, lost survivor of the Krill contingent. All my kindred have fallen to this world's horrors." The humans exchanged glances.
"This is a competition," Kestrel pointed out. "We're supposed to be eliminating each other."
Technically, the planet is doing most of the eliminating, Neota noted. The rules only state that the last survivors win.
"And we are not monsters," Ravi added. "Well, not compared to everything else around here." Malachi shrugged. "More the merrier. Can you eat behemoth meat, Crystal Dude?" The Krell's telepathic voice registered surprise. You would share resources with a competitor?"
"Consider it a cultural exchange," Kestrel said. "You tell us what you know about the remaining competitors and terrain to the north. We keep you from being eaten by the next behemoth that wanders by."
The Krell hesitated, then approached cautiously.
"I accept your terms, though I must warn you, I've glimpsed something in the central region of this competition zone. Something the organizers released that terrifies even me. And my species evolved on a world of living crystal that constantly tries to absorb our consciousness."
"Sounds fun," Malachi said cheerfully, serving up a behemoth steak to their new guest. "We'll deal with it tomorrow. Tonight, we feast and plan." As the strange dinner party continued, the broadcast cut back to the announcers, who were struggling to maintain their composure.
"This is unusual,"
Zviktor stammered.
"The humans have not only survived multiple apex predator encounters, but they've established a secure compound, developed weapons, begun scientific research, and are now forming alliances?"
"It gets worse," Blurg gurgled miserably. "The betting syndicates report that wagers on human victory have increased by 8,000% in the last hour. The potential payout is approaching the GDP of a small star system."
"What?"
Zviktor shouted.
"No one could have predicted."
"The humans did," Blorg interrupted. "Review the communication logs. Before they even arrived, they placed bets on their own survival through 17 different proxies. If they win, they'll bankrupt half the gambling houses in the Orion arm."
Zviktor's energy form flickered in shock.
"They didn't just come here to compete. They came here to hustle the entire galaxy."
By dawn of the third day, only 4 competitor groups remained alive on Vortha 6. The human team, now +1 crystalline alien guest, a lone surviving Zirak drone separated from its broodmind and now operating on instinct alone, 2 Athel warriors who had found refuge in a cave system, a Drell assassin who had remained hidden through perfect camouflage techniques. The Galactic Council was in full panic mode.
"This cannot be happening!"
moaned High Counselor Vialia, her 7 appendages waving in distress.
"The humans aren't just surviving, they're flourishing! Our viewership numbers have broken every record! The betting markets are in chaos!"
"Perhaps we should simply accept that we underestimated them,"
suggested Counselor Zizzy reasonably.
"Never!"
bellowed War Counselor Dreth.
"They are making us look like fools! We must restore the natural order! Release the Apex Titan!"
Vialia's appendages froze mid-wave.
"The Titan? But that's only for emergency use! Its last known feeding ground was an entire moon! We cannot control—"
"Release it!"
Dreth insisted, pounding his war gauntlet on the table hard enough to crack it.
Let the humans face a true challenge!
After a tense vote, the council gave the order. Back on Vortha 6, the humans were preparing for a day of exploration when their Krell guest suddenly clutched at his head in pain.
They've done it!
Tristal transmitted, mental voice strained.
The fools have released the Apex Titan! I can feel its mind awakening, a void of hunger and rage!
What now? Malachi asked in the middle of feeding strips of behemoth jerky to his pack of death wolves.
The Apex Titan!
Sir Tal explained, vibrating with fear.
A creature so powerful it once consumed an entire moon! The Council keeps it in stasis, releasing it only in the most extreme cases as a final challenge.
Kestrel frowned. Why would they?
Because you've embarrassed them!
Sir Tal answered before he could finish.
Your species was supposed to die immediately. Instead, you've dominated the competition. The galaxy is watching humans not just survive, but thrive on the deadliest world known. The power balance is shifting.
Well, that's flattering,
Nyota remarked, continuing to pack her sampling kit.
What exactly are we dealing with?
Imagine a creature evolved specifically to be the apex predator of apex predators,
Sir Tal transmitted grimly.
Regenerative capabilities beyond anything else on this planet. Strength enough to tear mountains open. Senses so acute it can track prey across continents.
So, big, strong, and hard to kill, Ravi summarized. Anything specific we can exploit? Weaknesses? Biological limitations? Sir Tal's crystalline form flickered in what might have been astonishment.
You cannot be serious! The appropriate response is to hide and pray it doesn't find you!
Hiding's not really our style. What other choice do we have? It's not like we can stay here forever, Kestrel said, beginning to check his weapons.
Aw, why not?
I'd miss Rachel and Joey, Malachi insisted. Kestrel ignored him. Nyota, any insights from the biological samples you've collected so far? Nyota was already reviewing her data.
Based on the planet's ecological patterns, any apex predator would have evolved specific adaptations to handle the extreme conditions. Supercharged metabolism to power enhanced regeneration, likely specialized digestive systems to process the highly toxic local fauna.
Meaning? Kestrel prompted. A slow smile spread across Nyota's face.
Meaning it might be possible to overload its system. Everything has limits, even apex predators. Push any biological system beyond its capacity, and it fails.
The psychic predator, Ravi said suddenly. Remember the one that tried to mentally dominate us yesterday before Nyota dosed it with caffeine? Its body is still preserved in your lab tent. Nyota's eyes widened.
Perfect! Its neurotoxins combined with the compounds I extracted from the behemoth's venom sacs could create a metabolic overload powerful enough to affect even a titan.
You want to poison the most dangerous creature in the galaxy?
Sir Tal transmitted, mental voice faint with disbelief.
You arose this morning to devastating news and chose to persevere in the face of evil destruction? This is madness!
Madness! Malachi grinned, patting Chandler the Death Wolf on his armored head. This is a typical Monday! Our veterans have seen worse for sure. Kestrel nodded. We've got about how long until this Titan reaches us?
Hours, perhaps less,
Sir Tal answered.
It moves with terrible purpose.
Then we'd better get cooking, Kestrel said. Across the planet, the remaining competitors sensed the Titan's awakening in their own ways. The lone Zirak drone simply froze, instinctual programming recognizing an unbeatable threat. The Athel warriors emerged from their cave system, weapons ready, determined to die with honor rather than hide. The Drell assassin silently climbed to the highest point available, prepared to observe and survive. In the observation station orbiting Vortha 6, every available viewing screen was now focused on the approaching Titan. Camera drones struggled to capture its full scale as it moved across the landscape, a nightmarish fusion of biological horror and evolutionary perfection. Its hide rippled with muscles beneath armor plates that made the behemoth look fragile by comparison. Multiple limbs ended in weapons nature had spent millions of years perfecting. Its maw, large enough to swallow shuttlecraft, dripped with caustic saliva that melted the bedrock beneath it.
By the sacred voids!
Whispered Zliktor, energy form dimming in terror.
The council actually released it!
The Athul warriors have engaged the Titan!
Blorg reported, voice quivering.
Brave! Foolish, but brave!
On screen, the two Athul, legendary warriors from a culture that prized battle above all else, charged directly at the Titan. Their energy weapons, powerful enough to punch through starship hulls, discharged in perfect unison. The blast struck the Titan squarely in what might generously be considered its chest. The monster paused, as if noticing insects for the first time. Then it breathed. Just breathed. The superheated, toxin-laden exhalation reduced both Athul warriors to component atoms in less than a second. Their weapons clattered to the ground, already beginning to dissolve in the caustic aftermath.
The Athul contingent has been eliminated,
Blorg announced unnecessarily as the viewing audience watched in horrified silence. The Titan continued its inexorable advance toward the human encampment.
It knows!
Sir Tal transmitted, crystal form trembling.
It senses you as the primary threat on this world. It comes directly for you!
Good, Kestrel said, checking the makeshift harpoon launcher Ravi had constructed. Saves us the trouble of finding it. Nyota emerged from her lab tent, carefully carrying a container filled with an ominous purple-black liquid.
It's ready. The most toxic substance I've ever created. Handle with extreme care.
What exactly will it do? Ravi asked, fitting the container into the specialized delivery system he'd built.
Theoretically, it should overload the Titan's cellular regeneration, turning its own healing factor against it.
Nyota explained.
Every cell in its body will begin dividing uncontrollably while simultaneously trying to digest itself. It's not going to be pretty.
And if it doesn't work? Malachi asked, unusually serious as he prepped his Deathwolf pack with what appeared to be makeshift armor crafted from behemoth plates. Then we're lunch, Kestrel said simply. Positions, everyone. It's showtime. They barely had time to prepare before the ground began to tremble. Trees in the distance, massive carnivorous growths that had survived centuries of Vortha 6's brutal ecosystem, were snapped like twigs as the Titan approached. Then it came into view, and even the hardened humans felt momentary doubt.
Holy shit!
Malachi whispered. That's big! Focus, Kestrel ordered. Stick to the plan. The plan, as it turned out, was insane by any rational standard, which made it perfectly human. Malachi and his pack of Deathwolves raced out first, moving in the coordinated pattern he'd drilled into them. They darted around the Titan's legs, drawing its attention without staying still enough to become targets. Over here, you oversized science experiment! Malachi shouted, waving his arms. Joey, Chandler, flanking maneuver! The Deathwolves responded with terrifying precision, nipping at the Titan's multiple legs from different directions. The monster roared, a sound that liquefied nearby rocks from pure acoustic force, and swung massive limbs at the irritating prey, always missing as Malachi and his pack moved with practiced agility. Meanwhile, Ravi had positioned himself on a ridge with his harpoon launcher. The massive weapon, cobbled together from pod parts and local materials, was aimed at the Titan's primary maw. Steady, Kestrel advised through their comms. Wait for my signal. Nyota stood by with secondary toxin containers.
Remember, we likely only get one shot at this. The delivery system needs to pierce deep enough to release the toxin into its primary circulatory system.
The Titan, growing increasingly frustrated with the Deathwolves, suddenly changed tactics. It reared up to its full height, easily the size of a small skyscraper, and began drawing in a massive breath.
It's going to use its breath weapon!
Sir Tal warned telepathically.
Nothing survives this!
Now! Kestrel commanded. Ravi fired. The harpoon, trailing a delivery line connected to the toxin container, shot directly into the Titan's open maw just as it was about to exhale. The impact drove the weapon deep into the creature's throat. Nyota activated the remote release, and the toxin container emptied its contents directly into the Titan's gullet. The Titan paused, as if confused. It took one step forward, then another. "Did it work?" Malachi asked through comms, still dodging with his pack at a safe distance. The Titan suddenly convulsed. A terrible, strangled sound emerged from its multiple breathing orifices. Its armored hide began to bulge in unnatural places as cellular processes went haywire.
"Take cover!" Kestrel ordered. "Everyone back to the fortress!"
They barely made it to safety before the Titan began to distort horrifically. Its regenerative abilities, attempting to counter the toxin, only accelerated the process as cells multiplied out of control. Limbs split and reformed. Armor plates cracked as tissue expanded beneath them. Internal organs liquefied and reconstituted in chaotic patterns. The death throes of the greatest predator in the galaxy lasted exactly 7 minutes and 23 seconds. When it finally collapsed, a mountain of flesh returning to the planet that had shaped it, the silence was deafening. "Holy shit!" Malachi said again, this time with considerably more cheer. "We did it! We actually did it!" In the observation station, chaos reigned.
Impossible!
Zictor shrieked.
The humans have killed the Apex Titan! The Apex Titan!
Blurg had fainted, his slug-like body melting slightly from shock. The Galactic Council chamber had devolved into pandemonium. High Counselor Vialia was being treated for multiple system failures. War Counselor Dreth had fallen into catatonic shock. Only Counselor Zizzy seemed composed, calmly transferring massive amounts of funds to cover what were about to become catastrophic gambling losses.
"The competition is over,"
Zizzy announced to the chamber.
"By all metrics and rules, the humans have won. The Deathworld Summit has its champions."
3 days later, after being extracted from Vortha 6, the human team stood before the Galactic Council. Malachi's Deathwolf pack had been reluctantly left behind, though not before he'd established an automated feeding system that would last until he could return. The council chamber, normally a place of austere dignity, was packed beyond capacity. Representatives from every major species crowded the viewing galleries. The broadcast was being transmitted to more systems than any event in galactic history. The humans, freshly showered and wearing clean clothes, looked remarkably ordinary compared to the assembled alien dignitaries. Kestrel stood at attention, military bearing evident. Nyota kept glancing around, clearly cataloging the biological diversity on display. Ravi was sketching something on a tablet, occasionally looking up to study the chamber's architecture. Malachi was taking selfies with any alien dignitary who would agree, and some who didn't realize what was happening. High Counselor Vialia, having recovered from her multiple system failures, called for order.
"Humans of Earth,"
she began, voice amplified throughout the chamber.
"You have accomplished the unprecedented. Not only have you survived the Deathworld Summit on Vortha 6, but you have demonstrated skills, adaptability, and problem-solving abilities that..."
She paused, seemingly struggling to find appropriate words.
"That have forced a re-evaluation of our understanding of your species."
Murmurs rippled through the chamber.
"As per ancient tradition, the winners of the Deathworld Summit are granted one wish from the Galactic Council: resources, technology, knowledge, territory. Within reason, your request shall be granted."
Vialia's appendages moved in the formal pattern of commitment.
"What do you ask of us?"
The aliens leaned forward in anticipation. What would these surprising humans demand? Access to advanced technology that would accelerate their development by centuries? Membership in the Galactic Council? The secrets of faster-than-light travel? Kestrel stepped forward, then glanced back at his team. Malachi gave him an enthusiastic thumbs up. Ravi nodded. Nyota smiled. High Counselor, Kestrel said clearly. On behalf of humanity, we request the deed to Vortha 6. The chamber erupted.
Silence!
Vialia thundered, her voice cutting through the chaos. When order was restored, she focused all 7 eye stalks on Kestrel.
You wish to claim ownership of Vortha 6, the deadliest known planet in the galaxy? The world that has claimed the lives of countless competitors over centuries?
That's correct, Kestrel confirmed.
Why?
The question burst from multiple council members simultaneously. Malachi stepped forward with a grin. Extreme survival tourism!
What?
Vihalia's eye stalk swiveled in confusion. Ravi held up his tablet, displaying a remarkably detailed business plan. We're going to turn it into the most exclusive vacation destination in the galaxy. Ultra-rich thrill seekers will pay fortunes for the controlled experience of surviving on a Deathworld.
With appropriate safety measures,
Nyota added quickly.
emergency extraction protocols, survival training, guided expeditions to the most interesting ecological zones.
We're calling it Deathworld Disney, Malachi announced. Tagline, Survive the Unsurvivable. War Counselor Dreth had recovered enough to sputter in outrage.
This is preposterous! You cannot possibly! Actually, they can,
interrupted Counselor Zizzy.
The tradition is clear. The winners may claim any prize within reason, and ownership of the competition grounds is explicitly permitted by ancient precedent. The Morgrani claimed the ocean world Hydraxis after their victory 3 centuries ago. The Prevolk took ownership of the volcanic moon Cinderspire after their win. But, those were worlds suited to the winner's biology,
Dreth protested.
Vortha 6 is deadly even to humans.
Not as deadly as you thought, Kestrel pointed out mildly.
Additionally,
Nyota added,
our preliminary research indicates enormous potential for pharmaceutical and material science discoveries based on Vortha 6's unique ecosystem. The medical applications alone could benefit countless species across the galaxy.
And we're happy to share these discoveries, Ravi continued smoothly. Through appropriate licensing agreements, of course. Vialia's appendages vibrated with suppressed emotion, but the law was clear.
Very well. By the ancient traditions and laws of the Deathworld Summit, ownership of Vortha 6 is hereby transferred to humanity, represented by the team of Kestrel Reeves, Dr. Nyota Wright, Ravi Kapoor, and Malachi Goldstein.
Malachi pumped his fist. Sweet! I need to go back for the friends. Ross gets separation anxiety. 1 year later, Deathworld Disney welcomed its first paying guests, a group of ultra-wealthy thrill-seekers who had paid the equivalent of a small planet's GDP for the privilege. None of them lasted more than 24 hours before triggering their emergency extraction beacons. 5 years later, the first permanent human settlement on Vortha 6 was established, a research station that expanded into a small town. Children born there developed unprecedented adaptations to the environment, growing slightly stronger, more resilient, with enhanced reflexes and immune systems that could handle toxins that would kill ordinary humans. 10 years later, Vortha 6 became the most profitable tourist destination in the galaxy, and the source of medical breakthroughs that extended lifespans across 17 species. The gambling syndicates never fully recovered from the financial impact of the human victory. And the galaxy never again made the mistake of underestimating humans. In the observation lounge of the luxury resort that now crowned the highest peak of Vortha 6's main continent, Kestrel Reeves, now Director of Operations, sipped his morning coffee while watching a group of tourists nervously prepare for their first expedition into the mild danger zone. Beside him, Malachi, now head of customer experience, was giving last-minute advice to the tourists while one of Joey's descendants lounged at his feet, the Deathwolf's offspring having become somewhat domesticated over the generations. Remember, Malachi told the wide-eyed tourists, if something is pretty, it's deadly. If something is ugly, it's deadly. If something looks safe, it's definitely deadly. When in doubt, assume it's trying to kill you, and you'll be fine. The tourists laughed nervously, not entirely sure if he was joking. He was not. Nyota, now Chief Science Officer, and Ravi, Chief Technology Officer, joined them on the observation deck, carrying data tablets filled with the latest research findings.
The new vaccine derived from the evolved behemoth venom is showing 100% effectiveness against 17 forms of cancer,
Nyota reported proudly. And the building materials based on the chitin structures are revolutionizing off-world colony development, Ravi added. Lightweight, stronger than steel, and self-repairing. Kestrel nodded approvingly, watching as the tourist group departed with their heavily armed guides, all humans who had chosen to make this deadly world their home. Not bad for a Tier 2 species from a weak gravity world, he remarked, raising his coffee cup in a toast. Below them, a fire tornado collided with an acid storm, creating a temporarily stable weather pattern that the locals had affectionately named Monday. In the distance, something large enough to cast a shadow over an entire galaxy was moving with predatory grace. The newest apex creature to evolve after the Titan's demise. The humans had named it Bob the All-Consuming. Just another day on humanity's deadliest, most profitable, most beloved world. Weakest species in the galaxy? Kestrel mused, watching as a tour guide casually dodged a projectile from a carnivorous plant. Nah, we're just smarter, meaner, and we brought snacks.